And we're live on Facebook. All right, let's get started. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely. Well, welcome everybody to the panel discussion. I hope that you enjoyed the film. I see that I'm on two screens now. I'm trying to think. Yeah. So we'll begin by introducing, with each of the panelists introducing themselves. So we've got Tim, Marisol, and Clement. And yeah, I guess if each one of you would like to say like who you are, and I guess just like a bit about yourself, and especially like what your like personal experience with extractivism is, like how your community has been like impacted by extractivism, and yeah, I guess we'll start with that. And I guess also as like both in personal life, but also in like your activist or political life as well, which even though there's a lot of crossover between the two. Yeah, Marisol, if you'd like to start.
Okay, thank you, Gali. Thank you for the invitation, Clement. Just probably to say hello in my own language, yeah? So I will say Mari Lamien, Mari Pulamien, Mari Compuche, Inche Marisol Pinien. I'm very happy to be here today and to share my experiences. Also, yeah, to talk a little bit about the film that or documentary that I think that was so important. It has their own voice, you know, with the stories and messages, a lot of disaster, but also hope, a lot of hope that I think is so important. My community, we live in Chile and Argentina. So we are separated by the border, but a few years ago, we decided that we are still one nation, the Mcbuche people. We speak the same language, we share the same culture. We are facing a lot of extractivism, oil, mining, we have forestry companies, but also we have other multinational corporations in our land, like hydroelectric companies. We have also companies, you know, like Monsanto, in a different way, also polluting, contaminating, and destroying the land. We are a very strong people, I will say so, indigenous peoples around the world in general. And we always find ways to continue, you know, our struggle. We are facing a lot of repression if I talk about Chile and Argentina. And the repression comes with the anti-terrorist law. That is the law that especially the Chilean government is using against Mcbuche people, the ones we are moving back into our land, the ones we are trying to stop for forestry companies to continue plundering our land. So what it means, the anti-terrorist law means that if you campaign, you move back into your land, they have the right to detain you. And with the anti-terrorist law, they can hold you for close to a year. So without any proof, without any specific reason, because they have all the time for them to look for proof. But also the anti-terrorist law allowed them to use witnesses with cover faces and also with the voice transform. So when you go to court, you have no idea who is accusing you, you know, because you cannot see the faces and you cannot hear the voices. You don't know who is that person who is saying that they saw you initiating a fire, or they saw you, you know, doing whatever they plan or they want to say about you. So this is a technique that has been used against my people since the dictatorship of Pinochet in Chile. And no matter what government we have, from what party, they continue using the same process. So that doesn't change for us, for indigenous people. No matter you have a socialist government, democratic government, you know, right-wing government, doesn't make any difference for Mapuche people. So the meaning of that is that they use those techniques to stop us from moving back into our land and to keep these multinational corporations safe. So the multinational corporations are allowed to have their own military, you know, police, and private police. So it's all that militarization against indigenous people that we have ourselves and a very strong voice. It's very sad when you see your land, you know, like a very green desert, full of pine plantations, full of eucalyptus plantations. You know, it looks green for a lot of people who goes to the south of Chile. They would say, wow, beautiful, so green. But not really. So all our native plants, you know, all our rivers get polluted by the eucalyptus, you know, from the pine plantation, from the flower, fell into our water and contaminate the water. So, and I can keep going on and on and on in how bad it is for us, you know, this multinational corporation. We are the keepers of the land. We has been always, and we will continue being the keepers. We are protecting our land with our life, and we are so lucky that Mapuche indigenous people who has been displaced and live in the main cities today, they recognize themselves as Mapuche, and they are learning our language, that is the Maputungun. That, you know, the reason why they were displaced was for them to become Chileans, not to speak more Maputungun, to forget that Mapuche means people of the land, you know, Mapu, land, Che, people. So therefore, you know, but it didn't work. So our young generations who live in the main cities, they are in the process to recover the culture, learning the language, you know, writing music, playing music in our own language. I'm talking about the histories, you know, that now our, you know, we'll say no ancestors, you know, our elders feel free, they can tell. So I think that's a very important process, and also it's a process that is making the Chilean government scared, and also the Argentinian government, because they haven't been able to defeat our struggle. So we became more stronger. Every time they jail our brothers and sisters, we, you know, they jail one and we came back 10. They jail 10, we are 100. So it's something very important that, you know, I think is important to mention. We also, as a very spiritual people, you know, very connected to the land. And it's so hard when you speak to other people and they don't understand the meaning of this, what it means to be connected to the land, what it means to feel that when they cut, you know, a tree that is a native tree, you know, you also suffer. It's not just something that you say, it's something that you feel, something that is with you You know, we respect nature. The responsible, the capitalist system, the neoliberalism, responsible, they are the killers, you know, of indigenous peoples around the world. And we need to fight together to defeat them. You know, we need to find a way to unite, to defend our land, to defend our water, the air, you know, nature, Mother Earth. So we need to stop using our colonizer names. Like, for example, as you can see me, Marisol Salinas. I have more names than that. But yeah, so extractivism is poison. It's money for a few, a disaster for the majority of the population. And I would like to invite non-Indigenous people also to unite with us in this struggle to defend Mother Earth. And yeah, to support Indigenous movements around the world, to denounce what's happening, to use the media to start putting out there all these stories, you know, tell the stories about different communities affected by extractivism, you know, put them out there, let people to see them, understand what's happening. And as the last, I would like to give you, all of you, a lot of Newen. Newen means fuerza, strength, you know, and yeah, happy to have this opportunity. And Marisol.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Marisol. Amazing. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure, just checking you can hear me. Cool. I'm Tim Buchanan. I'm a Wurunjeri community organizer, but I am here on Wurunjeri and Boon Wurrung country at the moment down in Nam, and so that's the country that I'm working on, and I pay my respects to this country here and elders past, present, future, and who are in the community. And thanks for having me here. Yeah, I'm Tim Buchanan. I'm a Wurunjeri community organizer. I was raised up on Biripi country in Taree and around Taree. I spent the last decade in Alubimba, Newcastle, on Awabakal and Warramai country, which is it's where the biggest coal port on the face of the planet is. It's the point where the most thermal coal flows. It's connected to the biggest coal chain in the world, which is on, it starts on what we call Warramai country. It goes down to Darkinjung. It goes sort of more inland to Wonnarua, Wurunjeri, my country, and then up to Gomeroi country. And then we see in Gomeroi country is where it's sort of this nexus of coal seam gas fracking, and all sorts of underground mining and open pit mining like lead, forest, and Shenhua, and there's a lot of fights happening up on Gomeroi country at the moment. I guess also personally, I feel sort of at the back end of some pretty brutal stuff that was addressed in the film, like dispossession of land, severing of culture, trying to, urbanize people. My grandfather was stolen gen. I'm pretty, like, at points feel disconnected from culture. The story on this continent is one of extractive capitalism that has driven people off land and country, and then like genocidal practices, both in the direct form and then in sort of the like outbreeding programs and really intense nasty stuff that happened here. I'm still here today, and I'm trying to connect to my culture through stuff like Marisol just said, trying to learn language. I have some learning difficulties when it comes to language, and I find it really hard, but it's something that I'm really trying to push forward with, learning Wurunjeri. And I think learning language and cultural reclamation is like a center point for us here, us mob here on this continent, and it's happening all around. And it is an essential part, because it is through that sort of that specific knowledge system around language, particularly, is how we connect to country. It's how we know it. It's the lingual systems and the stories that we tell, which give us that spiritual connection. Much along the lines of what Marisol said as well, and I really thank Marisol for, like, you know, having the power and the strength and bringing that. It was awesome to hear. I guess the way the situation here on this continent is, so when I see this film, I see so many communities going through the same sort of things that have happened here and are happening, and I actually see the same companies that are involved, like Chevron is really involved in liquid natural gas on the West Coast. And if anyone is familiar with the James Price Point campaign, Chevron was involved in that, having that liquid natural gas plant on Gurulabalu country, and those people won that fight. But again, it shifted. Those risks are coming back. So that was quite a successful win we had on this continent for First Nations people and communities. But again, that risk is slowly coming back. You know, it's been 8 years. That's just off the top of my head, and please check that number. But you know, that win was a few years ago now. But then the way of the system is those sort of risks are coming back in. You know, this continent is so vast and so wide, and we have so many different countries here, different First Nation countries and groups. And I guess, you know, the story here is one of coal, is one of lithium. Like, Australia is the largest lithium production country on the planet. That's on First Nations land. Uranium has been affecting our communities and water supplies and poisoning people for a long time. When it comes to uranium and water supplies, I think that's the risk that a lot of people in the top end, up in the NT, are fighting. And also for me, when we talk about extractivism, capitalism, and climate change, is something that I recently had to deal with firsthand, like maybe close to 2 years ago now, when it got to the point where mass irrigators for cotton farms were extracting water from, like, you know, what we would usually deem the commons, like a public river system, and storing it on their own land illegally. You're not allowed to dig the channels to store the water. But these people, and these big, massive irrigation companies, were getting around this system by digging drainage canals next to their roads. So really, they're not allowed to dig water systems to store water, but they were storing water in their drainage systems next to the roads they were building. So we have this really insidious mode of how people are getting around the laws. I'm just going to check the chat from Marisol. Yeah, cool. So I had to start delivering water to communities who didn't have fresh drinking water. We got a call, it was like day 3, and people were like, we've got to do something. The local community is being told to drink the bore water, but the mines in the area had, you know, I grew up drinking bore water. Sometimes it's fine, but the mines in the area, the coal mines and the CSG fracking had damaged the water table. It had dropped considerably, because when you dig a massive, massive open pit coal mine, the water tends to drain into it, so that the water table drops. And then with the mixture of chemicals that get mixed in with that water from coal mining and fracking, the water is pretty unsafe to drink. So we had to deliver 10 tons of bottled water and stuff you buy from Coles and Woolworths. That's what we had to do. It's these sort of situations which I thought would be much further in the future, when we are delivering like the bare necessity of drinkable water for kids and families. That really kicked my ass into gear, to be honest. Like, been fighting coal for a long time, and not that I'm saying it's abstracted, it's absolutely damaging to like country, sacred sites. And I was definitely like in the game then, but then when it comes to like basic necessities like water and water security, that really changed the game for me. So it was amazing to see the film and see the broad coalition that is building between nations and building those bridges, which are quite segmented by like colonial borders, you know, straight lines through people's countries. Like Marisol said, you know, the Mcbuche people aren't defined by these arbitrary state lines. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it for there because I think I'm rambling a bit, but I think I'm still sort of feeling the film, and it's a dual feeling, right? It's like, it's so amazing to see people travel and meet and go to communities and understand that their shared fight, but seeing the damage and the destruction and the blatant abuses and oppression by like companies like Chevron just dumping stuff into river systems and not cleaning it up is pretty sad. So these are mixed emotions, and the film was really great, and I thank you know, people for making it.
Thanks so much for that, Tim. And also, we love your rambling. Also got a text from a friend being like, no, he's watching it also. No, keep rambling. But yeah, so on that note, Clement, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Of course. Hey, Gali, Tim, Marisol, everybody. Thanks for having me. I am super, super excited to be in Australia right now. Who knew that the technology would allow me just on a blink of an eye to transport myself or teleport myself as far as Australia. Yeah, so I am Clement, the co-director, French co-director of the film that some of you have watched, The Condor and the Eagle. I co-directed the film with my wife, Sophie, who is German. We live in Germany now. We needed 2 years traveling in a small van to produce this film from northern Canada all the way down to the Amazon rainforest of Peru and Ecuador. We went to Chile as well, but it's not included in the film, unfortunately. We have started this project 6 years ago, so it's our first film. We tried to do this film the right way, to be serious about it. And we are extremely serious as well about the way we distribute this film. So instead of like selling the rights to a platform, to a TV channel, we try to keep it close to us and to organize with the film. I don't know, we'll have the time to speak about that, but from the very beginning, the idea was, how can we use media and mostly storytelling as a way to organize, as an organizing tool? I think some groups and organizations start to pick up on that. I think that not enough groups and organizations, whether it's grassroots or the big greens in social justice, environmental justice, understand how profound and impactful it can be. And we're trying to show just that. You know, we are an independent team of impact producers, but we are making it happen, right? We just show how it's done. So we are collaborating with many, many groups, whether it's grassroots groups, the big greens, larger groups, smaller groups. And we are just using this film as a way to trigger a debate, as we do today. The film is not the goal, right? It's just a way to bring people together and to help the movement grow from the bottom up. You know, this film shows how a social movement is created from the bottom up, you know, how isolated people, impacted communities, impacted people switch from the feeling of isolation to the feeling of empowerment, how they decide to no longer take the shit from governments in the industries, not accept it, reach out for local solidarity networks, gain regional visibility, get national recognition, and to build international alliances. How Indigenous women are the true leaders of the environmental justice movement globally. And what we do with the film and this impact campaign, the events we're organizing, is just to show that storytelling, when it's done strategically and well, can just do that. You know, how can we bring people together, you know, like contribute to strengthen alliances internationally in order to keep growing the movement we need. But, you know, like it doesn't mean anything movement. And what we push is a vision driven by justice, right? because they are environmental conservationists that are reproducing the system of oppressions we don't want to see anymore. So it's not enough to have good intentions. It is all about how are we ready? How far are we willing to go to give up on our privileges, or better, how can we use our privileges in order to support the work from the front lines that are already implementing the solutions we all need. You know, I'm white, I come from Europe, and I recognized, as I traveled to do this film, I recognized that the pollution outside was just a reflection of the pollution I carried inside, right? So even though I had good intentions, I wanted to make this film, and I was already supporting social justice, environmental justice, I recognized looking deeply, shutting my mouth up, listening deeply to the people I met, that I had no idea of the solutions, that just needed to listen, you know, to learn and to unlearn the system of powers and the system of oppressions I was carrying unconsciously. It's always easier to leave it unconscious inside. So, you know, like many people ask me, hey, so tell me the solution. What am I supposed to do? What's the solution? I'm like, well, this question is a problem because, you know, becoming an activist or to get involved is not a hobby, right? It's not like Saturday afternoon between 2 and 4 p.m. and then I keep going with my normal activities. It's all about making a deep commitment about unlearning, recognizing that we are part of the problems. The problem is not only, you know, the industries, the oppressors. We are reproducing the oppressive systems. We refuse. So let's stop denying the reality and let's sit in silence, listening deeply to the side of darkness, the parts of darkness that we carry, so that we can finally listen deeply to those that are not ourselves. You know, what is it that we don't see by seeing what we see? I will leave it like that. Add to that, I'm sure we will be able to keep speaking further about those topics. Anyway, thank you very much for being here and for having me. I appreciate that. And thank you Blockade IMARC for hosting our screening and for making this space available for us to speak about those important issues.
Nice. Thanks for that, Clement, and thank you for making this amazing film, of course. Also, just inviting everyone who's watching, if you've got any questions, to just send them through the Zoom webinar chat and we'll try get to them. Also, if you're watching through the Facebook live video, I'll try check out the questions on that, but can't make any promises because then I get double noise coming through my headphones and it's a bit much for my brain to handle. But I guess a question that comes into my mind just from listening to the three of you talk, I guess is thinking about, like, you know, what have been the successes that have brought us to this moment? You know, what are the variety of, like, you know, even in the Condor and the Eagle, we've seen like healing walks, and we've seen talking with councils, and we've seen direct opposition to these companies and to these industries. And I'm wondering whether it's from personal experience or from hearing stories from other people, like what is it that holds these movements and these spirits strong in the face of capitalism, in the face of colonialism? What is it that we have to, like, learn from the past? What is it that we have to learn from now and moving into the future? I don't know who to direct that to specifically, so if anybody wants to go for it.
I'm just going to jump in. Yeah, what I took from the film, and you know what we talk about in our communities and even in non-First Nations communities, is like the need for localized, community-driven, grassroots sort of strategic models, but also decision-making models that are inclusive. We are not seeking to build power structures where we are someone else with power. to please stop destroying our land, please change the legislation. We're seeking to build power structures which empower our own communities and those around us, and we seek to build that power to share it with everyone around us. That's really important to me, specifically in the context of this continent where the fossil fuel and mining sector, minerals councils are so embedded within our political structure. You know, some people look at our economic and political structure from externally and comment on how the corruption, what is termed legal here, would not be legal in most countries. That it's bold-faced, the revolving door between fossil fuel CEOs, and then you're a Liberal PM one week, and then you're a fossil fuel executive the next week. So it's really important to build our local community movements and build power from there. It can be difficult, though. What I also found from the film is that the isolation aspect is also something that resonates with me here on this continent. We often have these fights that are really isolated. The sites are like beautiful country, you know, that have rich history and are very important, but they aren't urban centers. You know, to build that momentum on the ground can be difficult, and it takes a little bit more time than places that have more people in it. But it was amazing to see those structures that are in place with community councils and stuff, and sort of looking at how we're doing that here and broad coalitions. And I just want to, chuck it to Marisol and talk about those broad coalitions. And I was really interested to that realization that, you know, Mcbuche people you have your own lands and it's your country, but there are these weird arbitrary border lines of colonial countries through them, and how you deal with that, and what sort of conversations do you have to bring all Mcbuche people to the table? How?
I don't think we managed to bring all the Mcbuche people to the table, because we were invaded, so colonized, evangelized. So we have a part of our communities who, some of them, they don't believe in our culture anymore, spirituality, dream time, but they do believe in God, the Western God. But we have also the other part of our community who mix both, you know, so our spirituality with the new God imposed, by the Spanish. So I will say that, and I will speak on just for those communities who are moving back into the land and fighting for their rights, because that's not every Mcbuche. I will lie if I said that every Mcbuche is in the same, you know, a position fighting for their land. But for those one who are, there is instance where we get together and we manage to get, we call it Parlamento. You know, we unite, we talk about what's happening, what is affecting all of us, and we try to get an agreement. That this is something that happened between the Loncos. I'm not a Lonco, so I will not be part of that discussion. That will be the Loncos and the Waishafes, who are the spokesperson of our community. So, but when we have extreme situations, you know, that affecting our communities, we do manage to get those parlamentos, this discussion, and get these agreements, putting aside the difference, because we do have difference between communities. We are Mcbuche, but we are different communities. For example, I'm from the south, from an island called Chiloé. So I'm a Huilliche. I'm a Mcbuche Huilliche. See? So what we have some difference with the Pehuenches. But we manage, you know, to get some agreement on how to defend ourselves and how to try to protect each other. But this is just for those, again, Mcbuche who are defending the land affected by these multinational corporations, you know, forestry companies, communities already displaced by hydroelectric companies. What we are facing is militarization. We have the militaries, surrounding our land, or we have what we call the police station. It's like a little box where you have a police, where, normally they have the right, they patrol around our communities and they can ask you for your IDs. Normally that's what they do you see, our appearance is different than the Chilean most of the time. So they can tell when you're a Mcbuche, and they will come and ask you for your IDs. There is all the racism. The treatment is different, so the way people see us is like we are wasting the land because we don't produce the land as the way the Western, mentality, exploiting the land for them means, working the land. But for us, it's totally different. It's a different connection. And also because we are in the process to move back into our land who has been already polluted by some of these corporations. But I will say that we do have that unity when it's needed. But also we have our biggest difference between our communities. From the video, I think is, as I said, the hope that you see in those communities who are badly affected, but they still want to fight for the land. They still have that strength to continue, not to abandon the land, not to let them, to push them out of the land because of, for example, the oil, the water, they cannot drink that water anymore. The soil is contaminated, but the communities want to remain in their land because of the connection, and I'm sure they are looking for ways how to, heal the land, because that's also a process that some communities, Mcbuche, have been through after forestry companies, move out of the land. It has been a healing process, where you need to plant again native, trees and trying to push for nature, to do their job to heal itself. I would say that the repression that we have is so strong that sometimes that also force you to create links and unity between, because we are all exposed to be jailed, to be prosecuted or follow, receive death threats, so we are all under the same pressure that sometimes that, it helps us to make a decision about we need to do something together. By myself, I'm no one. So it's a few things, that push Mcbuche people. But I will say I feel so proud of young Mcbuches. They are so strong, so proud of being Mcbuche, and that is so important for us, the ones we are not that young anymore, to see that our new generations have that spirit. They are warriors, they are prepared to defend our land, and they are more open to conversations than my generation and my previous generation, I will say.
Thanks for that, Marisol. Tim, sort of when they were passing it on to you, mentioned alliances, and that was something that was very prominent in the film also, the importance and the strength behind various communities like working together and being unified together. And there's a question for you, Marisol, in the chat, asking, is there much collaboration between Mcbuche people and First Nations communities in Australia?
We have what we call an exchange, Mcbuche and Aborigines exchange, that we started 3 years ago. And in that exchange, the idea was to create a strong links between Mcbuche and Aborigines and from Australia. So the first part of the exchange happened in 2017. So we managed to go back to my land and know where I come from, but the Mcbuche land from Temucuicui, you know, from Ercilla, they were happy to welcome my community, my people, plus all the indigenous from Australia who came with us. It was amazing. What do you want me to say? It was amazing. You know, we had local indigenous from here, from Western Australia, from Victoria, from Perth, you know, from different parts coming with us. And some of them, they don't want to leave Mcbuche land. You know, some of them, they were there and they were, this is my land now. I want to be here. I want to live here. You know, it was amazing. You know, they also experienced racism with us, you know, because we were moving from one community to another, you know. So we stayed in Temucuicui, but we moved and we met with all the other Mcbuche communities. But also we visit all our brothers and sisters in jail, all the jails where we have our Mcbuche leaders, you know, so we also did that. And I think it was important and strong, you know, to see for some other communities, you know, how Mcbuche people, you know, live. You know, we were the land, but also the difficulties, you know, when it's time for us to sell what we produce, you know. Some of the Mcbuches, the one we stay with, they go to the main city in Temuco and they have like an illegal way, you know, to put like a little box and try to sell what they produce. And you see police coming, you know, taking all the products from them and all that kind of repression, you know. So I think it was very important, you know, to see how strong is the community, how we try to stand up over and over. You know, we are pushed in our face once and twice and 3 and 4 times, but we always try to find ways to keep going. And we are planning the second exchange. The second part of this exchange is here in Australia. It was planned for this year, but we had the pandemic. It was for April this year, so impossible. So we are hoping to have a meeting soon and to organize it for, we'll say it will be for 2022 this time, if everything is okay. So what it means that different Loncos or Weishafes, you know, from the Mcbuche community will come here to Australia and meet with local, you know, leaders here. Also, we are hoping to invite in this exchange. We already got agreements from some of the local Aborigines leaders, you know, to invite some indigenous from the Asia Pacific also affected. And if it's possible, Latin American, other indigenous from Latin America, who also join us during the exchange. It wasn't just Mcbuche Aborigines. We also had indigenous from Peru. We had indigenous from Brazil. We had indigenous from Ecuador and from Colombia. You know, also they join us in this exchange in Mcbuche land. So yeah, I believe that this is something that we need to keep pushing for, make it stronger, you know. So it's unite and learn from each other, you know, how we learn to survive, you know, share those skills.
Thanks for that. Cool. We've got a few more questions in the chat. I'm going to be honest, also I don't really know how long this goes for. So I guess when the panelists are starting to get tired, let me know. So we've got a question from Lisa May saying, hello, I'm interested to know how we pave the way for the future to make sure the transition to a green economy doesn't end up replicating extractive exploitation and industries so the West can appear green but ignores the whole process in manufacturing new technologies. Tim or Clement, would one of you like to speak to that?
I'm just going to jump in quickly with, you know, I think I don't know how well known it is, but most of the world's lithium comes from First Nations land here on Australia. We're the biggest producers of lithium. and with, you know, the green capitalist new industrial revolution, I assume that will massively expand, as well as rare earth mining. Rare earth mining is really essential in any sort of computer components. We have the biggest, I think it's one of the biggest or the biggest rare earth mines in Western Australia, and it's linked to the biggest rare earth processing plant in Malaysia. Processing like rare earth minerals is like an intensely radioactive process. In Malaysia, they have a lot of issues around this particular plant that gets the minerals from this continent, and they have to face all of the external pollution costs of that radioactive waste being dumped into their local communities. There's massive problems over there with water and you know, birth and health problems. So that's what's happening now, right? That's the cost of computing and green energy now. If we move to smart green energy, smart cities, without degrowth, without growth neutral sort of systems, that sort of stuff is only going to expand, right? There's no way it couldn't. So the question is, how do we stop that? Well, you know, we have to look at economic systems. We have to look at capitalism. We have to be realistic about what socialism might do. You know, these are big questions, and they're really hard to give. Like, here's the direct answer. But we know what will happen if we don't change, and we know what will happen if it's a green capitalist economy that's sort of like US led. And we have, you know, what are the next wars going to be? But not oil anymore. It's going to be about lithium. No thanks. So the way we stop that is obviously through just, you know, like other people have said, you know, this is a lifelong thing for me, not because I'm an activist, because it's just like, it's a necessity. It's about survival. It's about seeing what's already happened to my people and understanding my disconnection. But also, you know, for non-Indigenous people, it's all these issues are going to affect you more and more. We're sort of at the pointy end, but you know, I realize a lot of people are already on board because they're seeing what's happening to their own communities and can see their own futures changing pretty rapidly. So we just have to keep building. We have to keep building momentum. We have to keep skill sharing. You know, personally, I have to get better at sort of this like culture of like looking after yourself, you know, like this whole sort of regen culture. I'm a little bit iffy on the name, but I think it's a great idea. It's something that like organizers are really crap at, is like taking breaks, knowing when to stop, knowing how to skill share properly, delineating tasks. This is my personal list from my head, but that's the sort of idea. How do we do it like healthier for ourselves and share that on, and like, you know, build responsibility and power as I get older, but then pass it on, you know, like be a proper, I don't know if the word is leader, but like someone who facilitates like constantly, is just understanding and making it palatable for more people so they can lift themselves up. That's it for me.
Thanks for that too. I think we've just had Clement drop out from poor internet. Was there anything that you wanted to add to that at all, Marisol? No? All right, no worries. Cool. There was also a question. Oh, one second, I think Clement is back. Hello. Was there anything else that you would like? No worries. Was there anything that you'd like to add to that at all, Clement?
To add to that, I don't know, because I got disconnected, so I don't know what I should be adding to. Do you have any question or something specific?
I have a question. For
All
you.
right.
Yeah. So 2 years journeying around, you know, Turtle Island, right? And then going south. French filmmaker. How, for those people who are creative, and you know, like I'm into film. I know people who might be watching who are filmmakers. As an outsider, like gaining trust, how to do it respectfully, things that you've learned. You've already mentioned that, like turning up and listening and you know, closing the mouth a bit. But also as someone who is a creative person and like, you know, you do bring enthusiasm. How did you deal with, or like what was that journey for you more as someone who is an outsider, you know, and coming into communities that might be suspicious and all that sort of stuff?
That's a big question. Thanks for that, Tim. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a straight answer for you. I think that whatever impact we go through, whatever solutions we want to promote, whether we are Mcbuche community, whether we live in Ecuador or we are privileged people, it's all about stories we speak, story we tell, you know, like when we started our journey, that was at the beginning of our story. And as we kept on traveling, you know, from North America to South America, the months passed by, our story changed. We met many people, our perception changed, and we learned so much. And so it's all about the creative process, I think, whether it's about making this film or for the other creative out there, is how do you constantly recreate yourself and the story that you tell. So you can tell stories by painting, by playing an instrument, playing music, making films, writing books, but you need to be extremely honest about yourself and how you look at your own ego. Because when we're speaking about toxicity before, and it's the same, you know, for indigenous people and privileged people, we all have problems and we all struggle with our egos. So am I going to keep identifying myself with the full sense of self that I build? Or am I going to just try to step aside, stop identifying myself with this little voice that I hear in my mind, and start rediscovering the interconnectedness I have of this self with the rest of us, with the natural world, with other people, with other cultures. So to gain the trust of people as we traveled through the American continent, to not appear threatening to indigenous communities as two white folks coming from Europe, and those communities having gone through so much violence, genocides, oppression, is just to be absolutely honest about your own story. You know, I come from a family of oppressors. You know, my mom was born in Algeria in a family of settlers. And I grew up in this environment in Europe, you know, where we totally forgot our indigenous roots. At some point, you know, our ancestors were in tune with the natural world. They were somehow indigenous to the land. But, you know, the cultural genocide is complete. So, you know, I think that in order to become a very powerful creative, to push forth a very powerful story, whatever media you use, it is to be willing to look deeply inside and to make a mess out of yourself, you know, unlearn what you think you know, challenge your own ego, and try to, you know, reconnect a different way with yourself and your environment, and understand that you're actually deeply connected to everything, and that your full sense of ego is just like another bullshit that you need to step aside from. I'm sorry, I stop here. And anyway, you know, I'm usually not taking part in the panel discussions. That's why I'm not a filmmaker. I mean, I just did this one film, but that's why I like, you know, listening and trying to organize more than just being on the front, because I think that I'm much more effective by listening than just speaking. So sorry for my bad communication skills.
Good. Thanks for that, Clement.
It was truly terrible.
I
know. Cool. So maybe we'll go with just maybe like one or two more questions, seeing as it's starting to get a bit late over here. Clement's day is just beginning. So we've got a question from Laura to Marisol that I will read out, and I guess to the rest of you also, saying, Marisol, I'm struck by your observation that no matter if the colonist government is right-wing military dictatorship or Allende-style socialist, the wreckage of the land and violation of the rights of First Nations people and the rights of nature persist. This takes us to the heart of the matter, that in my humble view, it's not about capitalism on its own. It's about ruling classes over time, regardless of political orientation, that have used the immense profitability of natural resources, specifically fossil fuels, to line their pockets and wreck everything. How do we reframe this immense struggle to be about rights of life?
Thank you, Laura, for the question or the comment. Look, just speaking about our own experience, I'm not an expert in socialism, communism, but speaking about the experience of the Mcbuche people, we managed to get a treaty with the Spanish crowd after the invasion. And in that treaty, the Spanish crowd recognized Mapuche indigenous land from the Biobío River to the south. And from the Biobío River to the north, it was Spanish. The Chilean people, when they did the independency, from the Spanish crowd. After that, they decided to invade our territory, not to recognize our treaty. There was a capitalist government. They invade our land because they wanted the natural resources that they were in our land. That's the experience we have. And when you mention in your comments, Salvador Allende, I never mentioned Salvador Allende because that was the only government in Chile that recognized our rights, and he gave us some of our land back. But as soon as we had the dictatorship, Pinochet, back in power, he reversed. He changed and took all the power, that Salvador Allende gave us to Mapuche people. After the dictatorship, every government that we have in power decide not to look into the Mapuche problem, into the land problem we have, into the militarization we face, into the continuously invasion of our territory, the displacement of our communities. And from the dictatorship until today, we have the Socialist Party in power, we have the Democratic Christian Party in power, we have the right-wing party in power, we have 3 times the Socialist Party or the coalition, whatever they call it, in power. None of them decide to look into the Mapuche situation. But that was my comment previously. I have a lot of respect, no matter if I'm not a socialist or communist, for Salvador Allende and for what he tried to do to restore the damage that was caused, to our territories and to our people since the Chilean people invade our land. But that's one part of the answer. I do agree that Mother Nature is something that doesn't have probably a political tendency, but in our personal experience, again, I will repeat myself, what we know is the neoliberal policies, they are in place at the moment, to us, and the capitalist system that is the one who keep ruling in Chile. And they're the one who allow these multinational corporations to plunder our lands and displace us. So that's all what I can say. So I don't see that a solution. I don't see that the capitalist system is looking after humans or the nature. They don't care. The neoliberalism don't care about humans and about the nature. So it's a poison system. So yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I think the struggle needs to continue. And yeah, I agree for the rights of life, nature, but taking the capitalist system out of the picture.
Thank you for that, Marisol. Cool. I think that we might start closing it here. I think that we're all starting to get a little bit tired down on this end. So maybe we'll just give each one of you a bit of time for like a closing statement, if you feel like it. And if you feel like saying quickly, like how, like, as we've sat down, we've watched this film, like what next? What's the sort of like your individual, if you'd like call to action coming out of this? Like what's the like final like burst of inspiration to like go to sleep, dream up in our dreams, and wake up tomorrow morning being like, yes, this is my purpose now. Yeah.
Love it. Such a huge question.
Just for
I find these
panels just for you.
I find these panels interesting because it's like you want to impart knowledge, but sometimes it's like, I'm using this panel to connect with other people, and learn some stuff, and so that's great. So for me personally, it's like I think taking some time to do some of that deep listening, taking time to recharge, finding my own sense of energy and personal power and motivation that, I'm trying to tell you how to get now. And I guess maybe the thing that we can look at, especially post-COVID, is to get out on country, go and do that connection work, go and meet your local community. Down here in Naarm, we've been locked up for a while, so that's going to be my first step. I know for a lot of people that just going out and meeting crew and meeting mob and like getting some feet on the ground again is going to be an essential first step. So that's my basic, but go and dangle your feet in a river and climb a tree. It's pretty basic, but I think that's going to be that's what I need to do. And sometimes as an organizer, right, I just don't do that, and that's probably one of the most important things that I should do. So maybe someone else can take something from that as well.
I like that, Tim. Yes, climb a tree. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's very, very painful to keep your eyes open. There is so much injustices, so much pain, so much suffering, so much. The world is pretty messed up, right? In our own history, family stories, our neighbors, Well, we need to keep those eyes open, And how can I keep being positive? How can I be still, nurturing a positive energy? I hate this word, positive energy, but that's what it is. That comes from keeping those eyes open. That's the question, right? Because many of us is starting fresh, starting positive, and then after a few years of organizing, they just burnt out and they go back home. They go back home. What is home? It's the home, this place of privilege, this place of comfort, this comfortable living, right? Because, it is possible to live comfortably at the expense of so many sacrificed communities, at the expense of the planet, at the expense of our own, mental sanity. So, that's a good question, That's a good question, how to, from detachment, become super involved. How can you keep your eyes open to the distress of the world and still trust deeply that you can make a positive difference. I don't have any answer, but it's a long run, right? You have to last. If you just like, you know, get involved to try and see, that's not a good approach. You know, you need to take a seat and commit to yourself, make a deep commitment. Okay, you know what? If I start tomorrow, I will still be in the struggle, in the fight in the coming 35 years. Because you don't fight for yourself, you know, with a capital S. You fight for the next generations. You fight for your kids. So you don't do that for yourself, and you don't do that for the coming 2 years. You do that for the next 30 years. So find a way, you know, find a way to breathe, find a way to climb a tree once in a while so that, you know, you can ground yourself, you can find the peace you need in order to keep striving. Because we don't need organizers that do that for their own ego. We don't need people that will fight for 2 years and go back to the system. You know, we need people that wake up for good and that are willing to stay awake, even though it's a painful experience. You know, life is painful, get used to it, deal with it. Thank you.
Look, as I said before, I think in the video and in real life, you can see that Indigenous people are very positive people. Everything that has been done to us for centuries, you know, we're still there. We still smile, we still laugh, we still have time to enjoy life day by day, you know, and we fight, we organize, you know. I think it's important, you know. So it's find yourself. You need to know who you are. You need to find the connection that you have with the land, and that will give you the strength, you know, to keep going, to see life in a positive way, you know, to see that when you see birds, trees, beautiful flowers, you know, how beautiful they are. Think about how important is, and you know, such a beauty there for you to see. And you know, for me, life is beautiful, no matter, you know, as like me and many other people, exile, moving out of your land, not because you want it, you know, because you were forced to move out. So but you still need to look life in a positive way. You need to push yourself up. And if you decide to join the struggle, I agree with Clement. I think it's something that defines you for life. It's not something that you take as a, you know, because I'm a uni, because I'm studying social work, because I'm doing, you know, these anthropology studies or whatever, and you have a subject and you need to do a placement and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Because I met so many during my lifetime of students, you know, who get close to you because that's what they are studying and they need to learn. But after they get a job and they get into the system and they forget about the basic principles, you know, that you need water, you need fresh air, you know, yeah, you need a place where to live, you need the basic needs to cover, you know, and that should make you happy, you know, and to share the same view with other people, you know. I think it's important. As we, you know, Mcbuche, we said our Fijian tune, you know, is my spirituality, you know, so it's the connection I have with my goddess, with everything that is around me, you know, give me the strength. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's important for other people to know that, but that's all what I can share with you, you know. This is, life is beautiful. There is some humans who doesn't make it beautiful, but we need to stand up and fight what we think is the right, you know, way of living, you know. And just for Clement, you know, I'm gonna think about it, but I'm not sure if I agree with you about that. Everyone has an ego, you know, so I will have to reflect on that, you know. I think indigenous people, we have been exposed to a lot, and probably I will not call it ego, you know, for those one who are so proud of who they are and, you know, confident and, you know, but as I said, it's something, a conversation for the future.
You're on mute, Kelly. We don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nice. I was just saying thank you, Marisol, and thank you so much to you, Tim, Marisol, and Clement for taking the time to be here tonight / this morning / noon. It's really, really appreciated, and it's been really wonderful to like share this time with you, to listen to you speak, to share your experiences and to share your thoughts. And there was definitely a couple of moments I was like, whew, I feel as if I'm getting a bit emotional right now. I might start to cry. Maybe I'm very tired, and maybe it's this conversation, maybe it's a little bit of all of it. But yeah, super, super appreciate it. Super appreciate everyone who's taken the time to spend their Sunday night joining us here. It's been really special. I know that I feel really abundance, a plethora of emotions right now, you know, ranging from the sadness and the heartbrokenness to the real like inspiration. And yeah, I think especially Marisol, your last sentence of, you know, life being beautiful, it's just a few people that make it not so beautiful, really being something that just like, yeah, like, wow, amazing, just really touched my heart. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I guess this is just the first day of the Blockade IMARC Counter Conference. Please stay involved. Please come join us for the next week. There's heaps of amazing workshops, amazing forums, more documentaries to be seen. This is just the beginning. So keep this energy going. And yeah, and a big thank you to Clement for, you know, sharing this film with us for tonight, and for inspiring this discussion to begin, and for all the work that you've done. And a reminder also to the people here that this event is donation based. So if you're able to, please make a donation, and the money raised will be going to both Blockade IMARC and the film's impact campaign, which is called No More Sacrificed Communities, which you can read more about through the what is it called? Online link that you use to register for this event.
Definitely check out all those links and, you know, support the film.
And
yeah, thanks to all the
Gali,
panelists.
oh, sorry. Gali, you did a great job. That was your first moderating a Zoom call. That you found your
Killed it.
vocation. That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, nice.
Cheers, everyone. I'm so tired. I'm out. But it's lovely to hear from you all, and we've got more panels on. We've got so many more panels. Let's do it. Love you.
Thank you, Tim and
Tim.
Marisol. It was great to meet you. Even if it was short, it was good. Thank you.